The man behind the tournament was busy meeting and introducing players on the first tee this morning. Jack Newton is delighted with the growing international recognition of the championship, which is likely to be moved to July next year to accommodate more overseas teams, particularly from Europe. But today's finalists had to cope with some challenging conditions.
Even for the very best players, these are very difficult conditions. Strong wind and some rain as well. So it's really going to be a case of who can hang on to their head out there today, I think.
South Australia's Robert Spence took a 4-shot lead into the final 18 holes, ahead of 3 players including Cessnock's Matthew Clark and Tamworth's Peter Smith. In the girls, Toronto's Joanna Wally had a 1-shot break from defending champion Stacey Doggett, with Tamworth's Phoebe Furneaux third. Smith was first to make a charge on the lead with a birdie at the second, but couldn't catch Spence, who fired a 1 over 73 in the wind to take the title by 5 shots from Clark. The girls was a closer contest, with Doggett and Wally level with 2 holes to play, Doggett prevailing to win by 2 shots. Kilpatrick beat Westport's Graham Triffitt 31-18 at this afternoon's final in Maitland, following on from this morning's 31-18 semi-final victory against Barradine's John Worrell. In the President's singles, Brad Blacker downed Bill Peach 31-17, while in the triples, Brad Dupay from Albion Park appeared set for victory a short time ago, leading Jeff Woods 26-9 with just 4 ends remaining. Locally, most interest centred around the fours, with Dennis Dalton's team from East Maitland qualifying for the final this morning with a 36-12 win in the semi-finals. With 10 ends remaining, Dalton led 14-10 and will also contest the pairs final tomorrow morning. A mighty finish by Rough Habit, the 8-year-old returning 740 and 210 to the Caulfield Guineas, and an all-the-way win for the David Hayes trained St Covert. St Covert's 8th win from 13 starts, taking its earnings over the $1 million mark. Marwina and Blevick filling the minors. To the Toorak handicap over 1,600 metres and a win for the bookies. Presser started at 50-1 and gave jockey David Tackett his first Group 1 success, upstaging favourite Poetic King, which returned 140 for the place.
"70 trucks headed the parade, cruising down Hunter Street en route to Civic Park. On board a special cargo, young children from Camp Quality. The parade stretched for more than a kilometre, with plenty of colour, character and carnival. Thousands of people looked on for the big finale of the festival. Matara is an Aboriginal word meaning the hand of friendship, the 33rd festival living up to its name. And in nearby Derby Street, the annual food and wine fair pulled in the crowds. It's the one day of the year that this busy thoroughfare is blocked off, and everyone made the most of the day out. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
In almost perfect conditions, another large field of competitors hit the water in the Maxville River for the annual Maxville Triathlon. The event featured a 500-metre swim, 20-kilometre cycle and 5k run. John Crimson, as expected, hit the front in the bike leg and was never challenged. Even after suffering a flat tyre around 3 kilometres from the changeover to the run, he pushed on regardless. Crimson finished the event in a new record time of 53 minutes 12 seconds, smashing his own mark set last year. Coffs Harbour's Matt Sylvester finished second from Neil Shannon. Foster athlete Kerith Duncanson's trip north paid off with a comfortable win in the women's division. The Maxville Athletic Club's next big assignment is the Maxville Gift in November.
After leading 14-10 with 10 ends remaining yesterday evening, the East Maitland Fours team, skippered by Dennis Dalton, was eventually beaten 23-22. Dalton's involvement in the pairs with Jeff Mayer meant that final was delayed till this morning. East Maitland again missing out. Tony Laguza and Kevin Walsh from Sydney Club St John's prevailing 21-17. To golf, and the second of 14 regional playoffs for the Holden Scramble was contested at Newcastle Golf Club today. The Cessnock team of Laurie Kemp, Jeff Boyd, David Vowles and Stephen Thompson combined with captain Paul Riley, the younger brother of international player Wayne, to win the Ambrose event with a 9-under 63. They'll contest the national finals at Sanctuary Cove on the Gold Coast in December. And finally in Speedway, Jeff Pine was lucky to escape serious injury at the Newcastle Motordrome last night after his car rolled in the leader feature. Meantime, Robert Maunder won the Stars final after winning his qualifying heat and breaking the track record for the second week in a row. Staged by the Newcastle MG Car Club, the 36 Matara Hill Climb was incident-free this year, allowing the 76 drivers 4 official runs through the twisting 1.1 kilometre course. As expected, Peter Finlay and his Formula Ford open wheeler clocked the fastest time of 42.68 seconds on his third run, just 0.7 of a second outside Gary McFadden's record. Police radar clocking the state champion at 131 kilometres an hour. Finlay was 0.2 of a second ahead of Ivan Tighe, with Peter Gumley finishing third. Newcastle's Ben Morley was fourth, while local Phil Limbert in his V8 Fiat was the quickest of the sedans, placed seventh overall, some 4 seconds off the pace.
The New Orleans-style showboat has taken shape on the old Newcastle dockyard site over the past 7 months. Even though it's been more than a decade since the ship went down the rails, Blue Line Cruises chose Newcastle over other ports such as Singapore, where the company's first paddle wheeler was built.
I think the showboat tour is a classic example of what can be done from Newcastle. I understand it's the first project that's gone through in shipbuilding that has not had any interruptions whatsoever through to industrial disputes or anything like that.
Blue Line claims 1 in 4 Japanese tourists visiting Sydney, or 300,000 a year, head for the floating cabaret show once they've seen the rock and the reef.
Maybe their last night in Sydney should be this particular attraction on Sydney Harbour.
So the showboat is very good for the Japanese tourists. Yeah.
The blessing complete, breaking the bottle was up to Lady Mayoress Margaret McNaughton. The $5 million, 32-metre, 300-tonne ship sat tight, defying efforts to budget with jacks, and a shove from veteran entertainer Bobby Lim. 30 minutes ticked by and the band played on. Caterers made a second round with refreshments. A pelican waddled up the slipway as others waited out the pregnant pause. How long have you got to go?
5 days.
Do you think you'll beat the boat?
Maybe.
Finally, tugs to the rescue and the showboat was on her way. Almost. Towed clear, the paddle wheeler will commence sea trials and final fit out before heading to Sydney. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
While it looks like something from outer space, Cowan Manufacturing believe it will be a saviour in the real world of emergency rescue. The recompression chamber weighs only 450 kilos and is just 2.2 metres long. Helicopter for on-the-scene help for divers suffering from the bends. The American Navy has spent more than $1 million trialling an early test. Canberra inspected the unit. Manager Bob Cowan says the possible recompression chambers to the Australian Navy. Cowan's General Manager Bob Cowan says the possible extra workers. Today, defence officials from Canberra inspected the unit. Tenders have been called for 11 recompression chambers to the Australian Navy. Cowan's General Manager Bob Cowan says the possible extra work is valued at around... Workers at the sheep metal factory in Mourners Bay are stunned by the shooting of their mate. They describe Jones as a good bloke with a bright future.
It's because he was a nice guy, not no problems as far as we know. All the fellas in the workshop are all shocked. No one's sort of knows nothing.
But that future was irreversibly changed when this Taralba backyard became a battlefield on Saturday. Peter Jones was shot twice, one bullet piercing his spine. The police scientific squad has photographed the area and detectives have begun investigations, but there is still no motive known.
All shootings are unusual. Probably what makes this unusual is there doesn't seem to be any apparent motive that has sort of come to notice at this stage.
Police have pieced together the last few minutes before the shooting. The man was gunned down by a bandit after going to check the power box of his Victoria Street home. But police don't know whether the power was cut to aid a planned robbery or whether it was a calculated ploy to get the man out of the house. Police say there are a few similarities between this incident and another shooting in the suburb 4 months ago. They're calling on the public to help their investigations. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
The former Inverell footballer is considered one of the best young talents in Australia and was presented with a Carlson Award last Friday, recognising his potential and outstanding season. Given this, it was little wonder the Knights were stunned to hear this morning that the player they brought from the tiny town of Tinga in the northwest had signed with Canberra.
Probably shocked at the fact that Canberra would attempt to approach one of our players that we have an existing playing arrangement with when they're going through a circumstance with Ruben Wiki and the Auckland Warriors.
Owen and his father Ray met with Raiders coach Tim Sheens last Wednesday in Canberra before the 16-year-old received the Carlson Award on Friday in Newcastle. The Raiders then chartered a plane in Canberra on Sunday, picked Owen up in Newcastle before flying on to Inverell, where Owen signed a contract with his father. Newcastle claimed negotiations to upgrade Owen's existing scholarship were continuing with his father and manager Wayne Beavis. But this afternoon, Ray Craigie said things just hadn't worked out with the Knights. The club has sought legal advice and believe Owen's scholarship is legally binding and are seeking talks with the league and the Raiders.
We'll be speaking to Canberra, we'll be seeing how far they intend to take the issue, and if they intend to attempt to register Owen's supposed contract with their club, then we'll be seeking an injunction from the Supreme Court to ensure that that doesn't happen.
A sliver of sunshine shed some light on one of nature's little miracles this afternoon. The 8-metre humpback was off course but not out of its depth as it swam with snorkelers in Nelson Bay. Dubbed Jimmy after the beach it was first spotted near, it looked right at home in its new playground. There are strict laws which prevent boats coming too close to the treasures of the sea, but this small giant was doing all the chasing.
We had our boom net out the back and he came right up to the people and he just wouldn't go away. It was incredible.
Tour operators Owen and Linda Griffiths have worked on the water for years, but they've never seen a humpback so far from its natural waters. But there is some concern about the visitor's condition, with Jimmy showing signs of sickness and wear and tear on its coat. Jimmy may have entered the bay for shelter, but late this afternoon he was gone, but not forgotten.
I've been in the water, around the water now for probably 35 years, diving, and it would be one of the best experiences I'd had.
With daily practice, David Higgins and Rod Bryant have this resuscitation exercise down to a fine art. They recently won 2 out of 3 sections at the state titles on the Central Coast and will compete in the Nationals this weekend. To win, they'll have to master resuscitation, a trauma scene and transportation of the patient. They're being helped by a veteran of many Nationals, Bruce Hounslow. But the main winners from the Nationals are the patients who are treated by these officers.
With officers training for this sort of competition, it only sharpens their skills for delivery of patient care in the general community.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
It's youth versus experience. The best of the Australian Army, Navy and Air Force is up against former state and national champions. Servicemen have travelled from as far as Darwin and Perth for the occasion. Since the first challenge at the Royal Sydney Golf Club 6 years ago, it's become a social event as well as an opportunity for the Combined Services team to practice for international matches.
We soundly defeated the New Zealanders and got up against a Pacific team in Hawaii. And I think it's matches like this that give the hard competitive edge to our players. The New South Wales side is a fine side with, I think the handicaps ranging from about scratch to 2. And that puts a lot of pressure on our guys.
Despite overseas success, the Combined Services team has lost 4 of the last 6 challenges to the Golf Association. While the Combined Services captain is predicting a turnaround this year, he says the Tuncurry course is the most difficult north of Sydney. It's ranked number 6 in the state.
Fairways have completely surrounded by trees, and the lies in the rough are rather difficult. So it requires absolute accuracy and a fairly demanding style of play.
The tournament ends tomorrow. Tracy Walsh, NBN News.
Emergency crews rushed to the crash at Main Road just after noon. In spite of their efforts, the 53-year-old woman from Noraville on the Central Coast couldn't be saved. Her grey car was crushed by the impact of the collision. Police say the Sigma, driven by a man in his 80s, ran into the woman's car after he swerved to miss another vehicle that had stopped to make a turn at the base of Tukley Bridge. The man was taken to Wyong Hospital in a stable condition. He's since been transferred to Gosford Hospital. Police have not yet released the name of the woman killed. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
The three teenagers have taken off in a big way. Their single Tomorrow has hit the pop charts and is cruising up the top 10 alongside bands Bon Jovi and Boyz II Men. Silverchair debuted at number 26 just 3 weeks ago and stormed to number 8 in record time. Sales of their single have also skyrocketed. Some stores are placing extra orders to meet the demand. The Young Rockers won a national demo competition 2 years ago, which gave them the chance to produce the hit single. And judging from the charts, Silverchair is set to hit the big time before the members even have licences to drive. Amanda Bolger, NBN News.
Stella Han has lived all her 55 years in this house. She just spent $20,000 improving it when an eviction notice arrived in the mail.
It was just like hitting a brick wall. Because, I don't know, you just don't do that to people. You don't take the roof from over their head.
Just a big company, you know, pushing little people around again.
There was no shortage of support for Mrs. Han and the Russell family today. Like many townspeople, CNA owns the land their parents and grandparents built these houses on. The coal company denies it has plans to develop the 1,500 hectares it owns around the town. Although nobody was available to speak for the company today, CNA issued a statement saying it could not permit unauthorised occupancy permanently. However, older residents will not be evicted.
They put us on a week-to-week basis after Mum died, and they said they'd give us 3 months' notice when they wanted to evict us, and they've done that.
9 houses once stood here in a place known locally as Federal City. 3 more houses have been knocked down around the town in the past 3 months. The locals are afraid they're being squeezed out.
The town's just dying off now. There's 4 shops have closed down over the years. The RSL Hall, which was up here, is closed down. The school, post office is gone.
The Progress Association says if the company won't negotiate for a fairer deal, it will appeal to the unions, the Premier, even the Prime Minister to help. Joanne Shoebridge, NBN News.
Wherever he was standing. How'd you go? I wanted to get a response. In they can believe just like they're sitting there watching the snowfall outside the offices there.
The The study surveyed almost 24,000 New South Wales miners who joined the industry at the start of 1973. The Joint Coal Board commissioned Newcastle University to conduct the study following concerns over the occurrence of cancers, namely lymphoma in miners at the Huntley Colliery on the south coast and brain tumours among miners at Newvale 2 in Lake Macquarie. Professor David Christie from Newcastle University headed the report, which found the overall cancer rate among miners is some 20% less than that expected in the general public. However, the levels of some specific cancers were higher among miners.
Melanoma is one that needs an eye on. There is an excess in bone tumour, but this is a very small number of cases, 4 as a matter of fact, in 23,000 men over 20 years. So it's not much, but it's the sort of thing you keep an eye on.
The report will help establish an ongoing statewide cancer surveillance system of coal workers.
We will know the distribution of cancers in all mines, so you can say, no, this is just like the average mines, this is normal, or no, that's not normal, this is not good at all.
While the report indicates that being a coal miner doesn't appear to increase the chances of getting cancer, the study doesn't finish with this finding. The Joint Coal Board will now take over the research itself, reviewing the situation at regular intervals over the next 10 years. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
So the advisory committee, together with the general practitioner, the death guidance, just the thing where the year where we are looking at the issue of few words.
Well, thank you very much.
There was a slice of cake for everybody at the Lanes Hardware factory in Hamilton, but the real dessert will come in the next few weeks when the lotto cheque arrives. They'll share more than $500,000, nearly $20,000 each. The dividend comes after 2 years trying, each worker giving $2 a week for the system's 10 entry. But most of them still didn't know they'd won the big one until they arrived at work this morning.
I was really nervous. I didn't know where to run, what to say or anything. I was really nervous.
This morning when I come in work, I was lady screaming and I said, what's going on? He said, we win. Oh, that's great. And
most say they'll buy a new car or pay off the mortgage, but for Linda Hughes, pregnant with twins, the windfall will be spent on a nursery.
It's going to be a good start. It'll help build a nursery we've been planning on. Worried about the money and so forth, but now it's no problem at all.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Around 7:30 last night, emergency crews were called to Merriweather Baths in Newcastle, where a truck owned by a private pesticide contractor had crashed through a safety fence, landing 80 metres below next to the baths. Emergency crews worked for 30 minutes to free the vehicle's only occupant, the 45-year-old driver from Mayfield. He suffered stomach wounds and is in John Hunter Hospital in a stable condition. The tabletop utility contained 4 drums of toxic and poisonous chemicals. One rolled into a wading pool while the truck's mixing tank leaked. Bystanders retrieved the drum. Fire, ambulance and police officers cleaned up the spill. All were contaminated. Their clothes were today bundled up, ready to be destroyed.
If the truck had caught alight involving a number of those chemicals, it could have been quite catastrophic.
The 29 people contaminated by the chemicals were taken here to the Mater Hospital for tests and observation. They've been given the all clear, but told to report back to hospital should they feel unwell. The clean-up at Merriweather was on in earnest today. Both pools were emptied. The large pool will reopen tomorrow. The children's pool may take a few days longer.
We'll fill this small pool in the morning, conduct some water samples on it, take some tests and analyse that, and we'd expect it probably about 24 hours before we'd open this for public use to ensure the safety.
Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Drawing on his work as a priest in the United States, Father Paul Morrissey compiled the stories of real people that now fill the pages of his book, Let Someone Hold You. The Catholic priest, whose parish takes him from the slums of Harlem to Manhattan Island, launched the book in Australia at Newcastle's Mater Hospital.
We'd go home at night, and in some ways the only way I could deal with all the pent-up emotions that nobody wanted to hear about that I lived with was to write them on the computer. I would sit down on my word processor and just bat out these stories.
Over 4 years, the lives detailed in his book were collected. It's also a story of the personal transformation of the priest himself and the nurses who made it easier for him to reach out to terminally ill patients.
They are just incredible ladies, and men too, who showed me how to approach dying and death and not be afraid of it. They walked me in there as a priest and helped me relax, these nurses, so that my hat goes off to them.
Today's book launch was a forerunner to the inaugural Australian and New Zealand Palliative Medicine Conference, which will be held at the Kirkton Park Estate, Pecolbin, next week.
He's put the bomb up. Give me the fucking knee, actually. Oh, that's beautiful.
Stolen his car. He then drove highly erratically with 2 flat tyres